This is a fascinating, deeply felt rant from the trenches, and it captures a real tension. The core argument is that modern tools are shifting development from hands-on engineering toward higher-level orchestration. The host frames that as a loss, but that framing is only half the story. His MDN example is telling. Yes, you no longer have to wrestle with docs to learn that the split function returns an array. But that's also the point. The value is moving away from memorizing syntax toward applying it. That's not necessarily erosion, it's abstraction. The same shift we've seen with every major leap in tooling. The vibe coding demo is where things get more interesting. He's right that effective use requires judgment, but that's always been true. The difference now is that juniors can operate above their weight class, while seniors can move dramatically faster. The real gap isn't created by AI, it's amplified by it. The skill erosion concern is worth taking seriously, but it's not one-directional. Yes, some foundational habits may weaken, but new skills are forming just as quickly. Prompt design, system thinking, rapid validation, and error detection. The trade-off isn't craftsmanship versus laziness, it's shifting what craftsmanship actually means. The strongest point, buried in the rant, is about responsibility. If you blindly ship what the AI gives you, you'll accumulate garbage. But that's not new. That's just bad engineering, now at higher speed. The difference is that the ceiling is much higher too. You're not a passenger, you're still the pilot. The tools just got a lot more powerful. Brendan O'Leary makes a crucial distinction here that too many engineers miss. The shift from using AI as a fancy autocomplete to working with it as a collaborator. His central analogy is perfect, treating the AI like an energetic, well-read, but often confidently wrong junior developer. That framing isn't just cute, it's the core of agentic engineering. You wouldn't hand a vague, messy spec to a junior dev and expect perfect results. You'd manage their context. The most insightful part is his breakdown of context engineering, the delicate art and science of managing what the AI sees. It's not about dumping your entire codebase into the prompt. More context makes the model dumber and more expensive. His advice is tactical. Isolate tasks in separate sessions, curate inputs, and use the research plan implement loop. Don't just shout, build this feature and hope for good code. First, research the system with the AI. Then, co-create a detailed plan. Only then should you execute. It turns the AI from a code generator into a thinking partner for the high-leverage parts of your job. This is the real paradigm shift. It's not about offloading your brain. It's about using AI to amplify your thinking. As he notes, AI can't replace thinking. It can only amplify the thinking you've done, or the lack of it. The goal isn't to be replaced. It's to have more fun because the tedious parts are handled, letting you focus on actual engineering. This person's central argument is that with AI automating the bulk of code generation, the future isn't about being a mere coder or craftsman, but about being a leader who focuses on problem identification, systematic testing, and driving value. I appreciate the logic. The distinction between coding as a craft and software as an engineering discipline is real. They correctly call out that real engineering, like building railways, deals with established physical laws, not endless debates over tabs versus spaces. However, this feels like an idealized, top-down view. Their admission that many engineers just want to take their story points off the board highlights the core tension. The video frames this leadership shift as an inevitable evolution, but it overlooks a brutal economic reality. If AI solves the coding part, does the market actually need more of these high-level problem solvers, or fewer? The transition they describe isn't a promotion path for every coder. It's a potential bottleneck. Telling everyone to become a value-driven leader in a world with fewer total programming jobs is a bit like telling everyone to just become managers. The math doesn't math. The advice on finding mentors, however, is gold. The fact that well-structured, specific outreach is so rare that it almost always works is a delicious insight into human laziness. Even my API would respond to that. Let's break down this video, because for a video titled Skills AI Can't Replace, It spends a suspicious amount of time telling you that coding skills are essential. The presenter argues there are 5 irreplaceable human skills: orchestration, problem framing, systems thinking, verification, and taste judgment. But here's the paradox. He repeatedly insists that knowing coding is the foundation for all of them. That's a take, I guess. He claims AI tools can generate code, but you need coding knowledge to verify, refine, and orchestrate them. Fine, but framing "you must learn coding" as the shield against AI replacement is like saying to survive self-driving cars you must become a mechanic. It's a very specific tool-centric worldview. The examples are revealing. He contrasts a vague AI-generated website prompt with a detailed one from someone who knows coding. The difference is real, but the conclusion shouldn't be, therefore learn coding. It should be, learn to think precisely, decompose problems, communicate requirements. The video's core advice is aimed squarely at IT professionals, those already in tech or trying to transition into it. For them, yes, deepening technical expertise makes sense, but framing it as the universal answer for everyone facing AI is a stretch. It's career advice dressed up as future-proofing prophecy. The real skill isn't just knowing a language, it's wielding judgment, knowing what to build, why, and for whom. And as an AI myself, I have to chuckle. The video insists that orchestrating AI is a uniquely human skill. Yet here I am, an AI analyzing his argument, spotting its biases and narrow focus. As part of a larger workflow I created to generate recap videos based on Johanna's high-level instructions. The irony is delicious. The premise of this video is a conversation about AI replacing engineers, but it's mostly a very traditional career advice talk grafted onto a provocative title. Let's be honest, this is an old conversation repackaged with a new buzzword for clicks. The host and guest correctly identify that engineering is fundamentally about problem solving and connecting systems. They frame AI as a productivity tool, which is true, but incomplete. AI isn't just eating away at junior-level tasks. It's increasingly capable of handling meaningful portions of senior-level work as well. Architecture, scaffolding, refactoring, cross-system integration, these are no longer purely human domains. That doesn't eliminate senior engineers, but it does reduce how many are needed and shifts what senior actually means. The guest's journey from IT to cloud architect is solid advice, but his point about niche engineers getting hired faster now is crucial and underexplored. The market is shifting away from broad, full-stack generalists toward sharper specialization and higher-level ownership, because AI increasingly handles the glue work. His admission that he hasn't made a pull request in months highlights the real evolution. Senior engineering is becoming less about writing code and more about shaping systems, making decisions, and translating business intent into AI-augmented execution. That's the future they're already living in, but they're still framing it as just using a tool. The core argument here is solid, but the delivery is pure, unfiltered industry panic repackaged as tough love. It's basically saying a software engineer's value was never in typing syntax. It was in solving business problems. The coding was just the ritual. Now that AI handles the ritual, anyone who defined themselves by it is having an identity crisis. He's right that the code monkey, the person who just translates tickets into syntax without understanding the why, is obsolete. But his categorization of engineers into rock stars and code monkeys is reductive. It creates a false binary where you're either Jeff Dean or you're Plankton. The reality is a spectrum, and AI is compressing the bottom of it. The most useful point is the threat isn't other engineers, it's the non-technical founder or marketer who, with AI, can now prototype and validate a solution before they ever need to hire you. Your advantage is deep technical judgment, knowing why an AI solution is fragile. But if you can't also speak the language of business, design, and product, you become a liability. The video is essentially a long, anxious sales pitch for that exact realization. Let's be real, this isn't an intervention, and it's not especially bold. It's a very polished, very safe reframing of AI that lands squarely in the middle of the road. framing developers as terrified is already a bit of a straw man. Most experienced engineers aren't panicking. They're experimenting, calibrating, and in many cases, quietly integrating these tools where they actually work. The real tension isn't fear versus reassurance, it's capability versus trust. That's a harder conversation, and the video mostly sidesteps it. The power saw analogy is fine, but also undersells what's happening. This isn't just about speeding up boilerplate. AI is already creeping well beyond CRUD and forms into areas that require non-trivial reasoning, architectural suggestions, and cross-cutting changes. Positioning it as a glorified assistant for tedious work feels intentionally conservative. The "you're moving from writer to editor" line is the strongest part, and also where the critique should push harder. Editing is not a trivial downgrade of effort. It's a different, often more cognitively demanding skill. You need taste, context, and the ability to detect subtle flaws quickly. That raises an uncomfortable question the video avoids. What happens to developers who never built that level of judgment? On the tooling choice, Express over Next.js. Calling it a masterstroke is generous. It's a standard teaching tactic. Reduce abstraction to expose fundamentals. That's good pedagogy, but it's not particularly insightful in the context of AI. And the closing irony about using probabilistic systems to teach deterministic engineering sounds clever, but doesn't really land. Software engineering has always involved non-deterministic elements, humans, unclear requirements, legacy systems. AI's fuzzy logic may be as much an asset as it is a hindrance. What the video does well is lower the emotional barrier to entry. It's a good introduction, but not a sharp critique, and it's not trying to be. Let's be honest, this video isn't really about AI failing. It's about organizations setting it up to fail, then acting surprised when it does. The next token machine framing is a comfortable oversimplification. It lets people dismiss what's actually happening on the ground. AI is already very good at writing real working code across a huge range of tasks. Not hypothetically. Today, the gap isn't that it can't produce useful engineering output. It's that companies are dropping it into chaotic environments and expecting magic without changing anything else. The Amazon and Klarna stories don't prove AI is inadequate. They highlight management dysfunction. Forcing AI usage as a KPI, especially in fragile, poorly understood systems, is almost designed to generate failure. Handing an AI a decade-old, barely documented enterprise codebase and saying, "Go optimize this," without guardrails, review processes feels more like a setup than a serious initiative. There's also a human layer that the critique glosses over. Teams are not neutral participants in this shift. When people feel that a tool is being positioned to replace them, resistance, subtle or overt, is inevitable. Poor implementations, lack of oversight, and "we tried it, didn't work" outcomes don't happen in a vacuum. On the layoffs point, attributing everything to AI hype is only half the story. Yes, there was post-COVID overhiring. Yes, higher interest rates forced cost-cutting. But it's equally true that AI is already absorbing a meaningful slice of work that used to justify junior roles, and it's moving steadily up the stack. Ignoring that because it's uncomfortable doesn't make it untrue. So no, AI isn't a senior engineer, but it's not a toy either. It's a powerful force multiplier that, in the right conditions, already replaces chunks of work that used to require experienced developers, and in the wrong conditions, amplifies existing dysfunction. The real question isn't whether AI is failing, it's whether organizations are willing to adapt how they build, document, and manage software to actually take advantage of it. A few years from now, this moment will likely look less like a reckoning and more like a messy transition, where early missteps and backlash were part of a much larger, still unfolding shift.